Okay, here is a tutorial on how to bounce your final project to Quicktime Movie. I highly recommend you bouncing your audio first, bounce to disc like you've been doing all along. You've listened to it 100 times. Everything is riding nicely with each other. No sounds are louder than the other. You might want to solo all your dialogue first. Make sure that plays nice with each other. Solo your sound effects. Make sure those sound good together. And then put everything together. So your sound effects, your music, your ambiences, and any dialogue. This is mainly for you Rango people that has all that dialogue. Make sure it plays nice. And I suggest strongly you book a half an hour in the 558 studio and go in and play your project back on the speakers in there. I guarantee you it'll sound different on the speakers than it will in the headphones. So next week when we present these projects, if we play them back and your mix is all out of whack and I ask you if you listened on the speakers and you say no, that'll be why. So do take some time, go into the studio in 558 and listen on the external speakers. Okay, so one other thing, you've added a stereo master fader, I'm quite certain. I've added this Maxim mastering plugin here. Again, this is, we've talked about this in the dynamics category here, Maxim. And this is a limiter, so this will make sure that you don't have any peaks. Sometimes individual sound effects are fine on their own, but when you layer them all together, you get some clipping, so this will help you out. So again, your threshold is the decibel level at which the limiter kicks in. If you hover over it, it'll give you some information there. And the ceiling is the maximum output level. It will not allow the overall level of your session to go above a certain. So I usually set it to -2 and -1 as a starting point if I need to bring my threshold down a little bit lower so that the limiter kicks in sooner. But don't go crazy with this because it is, compressing your sound. So you want as much sound as you want to come, but it's a safety. So if you're getting any clipping at all in your master fader track when you play everything back at once, make sure you add this Maxim limiter to your master fader. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to bounce my audio first and then re-import that back in as a stereo audio track, and then I'm going to just bounce that final mix with my video to Quicktime Movie. So I've got all of my tracks soloed here, including my room reverb, which we just created. So I've got, you see this, these are all my sends. And by the way, if you got lost in the lesson, couldn't figure out where to add a send, here in this pull down, send A to E. But you should know that by now. It's this little guy. Okay. So everything is solo that I want to include in my bounce. And I've listened to it on an external speaker. Yeah, everything should be great. So I'm going to select the whole area that I want to bounce. Actually, I'm just going to select the length of my movie. That's just determining the length of the amount that it's going to bounce. It's not going to include the movie because we're just bouncing to disc. But this is where the bounce will start and stop. And as normal, we go bounce to disc. And again, make sure that you are including your room reverb in your bounce. So I'm going to call this my film sound audio bounce or audio mix. I'm going to make sure it's a WAV file and it's interleaved, and I'm going to leave it at 2448, and then I'm going to make sure that I check import after bounce, and it will should default to the bounce files folder of your session, so leave it there. And I'm going to do it offline because in the essence of time saving, I don't want you to sit here for 2 minutes or so and listen to it, but you're going to listen to yours just to make sure one last time that everything is perfect. So again, offline means you can't hear it. It does it very fast. If you uncheck that, it'll bounce real time. So you use 2 minutes of your time to make sure that your sound is perfect. And once all that is good, I'm just going to click bounce, and it will happen very fast. And then it asks me, do I want to re-import that audio as a new track? Yes, I do. And so here it is. Here is my mixed stereo audio file. So at this point, I can mute everything else. Remember, holding Option does the same action to everything. Of course, I don't want to mute that because that's what I'm going to bounce to QuickTime. I'm going to bring this up to the top right underneath my video. And now I'm going to bounce this to QuickTime Movie. So I'm going to solo that mix that I just brought in. And I'm also going to highlight my film track here. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do bounce to QuickTime. This time I'm going to bounce it down to 1641 because that will give us good CD quality to listen to. If you were bouncing out just your audio and sending it to someone that you were working with, if you were working on a team, and you're doing the sound design and you were sending it to your editor, your video editor, to import into a video editing program like Premiere or something like that, you would likely bounce your audio only as 48, 24-bit because most film editing softwares like audio at 48K, and then they would mix it down. But in this instance, we're going to bounce at 1644.1, and you can call this your final film sound final, and I'm going to put my name on it, as are you, Terry Dame. Okay, and then just again, it should go to your bounced files folder automatically. And again, I would listen to it again live, but I'm going to do it offline because in the essence of time. So my sound is soloed, my video is highlighted, I'm bouncing. Make sure QuickTime bounce, make sure include video, that should be checked by default. Wave file interleaved 16-bit 44.1. Double check, double check, double check. And click bounce. And now it's going to do the QuickTime, and that should be that. So now if I go look in my folder, it should be there as a QuickTime. And there it is. Film sounds final, QuickTime movie, and that is what you will, there she blows. That's what we'll look at next week in class. Okay, so that is bouncing your final project to QuickTime after you have listened to it in the 558 studio and the external speakers. Everything is beautiful. Nothing is clipping. Your levels are all nicely matched. You've included a room reverb. You've included a master fader with the Maxim plugin on it. And voila. All right. I will see you next week.